Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome to episode 300 of the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys are having a good day, and you might already have noticed that something is a little bit different about this video. This video is going to be a kind of interactive 360-degree tour of the Minecraft Survival Guide world. I thought we should do something a bit special for this milestone, and thanks to the replay mod having the capability of exporting 360-degree videos, you'll be able to look around you as we go through this tour. Now, if you're watching this in a YouTube player, in a browser, in a web browser, you can use the W, A, S, and D keys to look around, or click on the arrows in the top left corner of the screen. Just tap the arrows, no need to click and drag or anything. You should be able to look around just fine using those. If you're watching this on a mobile device, like a mobile phone or a tablet, you can turn your device and use it to look around the room as though you're viewing it through some sort of goggles. It's pretty cool. And speaking of goggles, if you're lucky enough to own a VR headset, you can use that for this tour as well and just look around you. Although, it's worth bearing in mind that we are going to move the camera around a little bit as we travel through some areas of the world, and we're going to be flying for some sections that are better viewed from the air. So you might want to avoid viewing this in VR if you're prone to vertigo or motion sickness. We don't want anybody getting sick on this tour. A couple more notes before the tour starts. I'm going to set the time to day permanently, and I might put myself in creative mode so I can fly around and I don't get interrupted by mobs attacking me. We're also probably not going to cover absolutely everything I've done in the series, because visiting every strip mine and desert temple that I've been through would probably take hours at this point. But I will try to take you through the major landmarks, starting of course with this. This is the farmhouse that we built early on in the series, and I've always kind of considered this my home, even if I don't use it all that much anymore. Got tons of storage in here. We've got a villager in the corner. His name is Mendelsohn because he was the first villager who ever traded me a mending book, and I still have some mending books over here in my shulker box by my enchanting setup here in the corner. Moving on downstairs, we have a couple of our other friends down here. We just got a couple of villagers stashed in the corner, a cleric and a librarian. They don't have anything super special. I think the librarian has a channeling book, but we've got the usual modern conveniences, now including a smoker and a blast furnace and that kind of stuff. It's a nice little cozy interior, nothing too special, but this was the beginning of the series, and things have come a long way since then. Alright, and now as I run up the path towards the windmill, you should be able to see the wheat field around you, as well as a few landmarks here in the distance. So we're going to be going over a lot of this area. This is the area that I've kind of considered my base from the very beginning of the series, and it's a place I love to come back to. This is the area I've been calling Founder's Forge, and it kind of revolves around this town over here with the castle at the very end between those two mountains, and then this little area of farmland, and across the bridge in the distance is my industrial area. And we're actually going to take a quick trip over there because that's really where I want to start the tour. This is where I've made a lot of my automated farms and tried out a bunch of redstone stuff over the course of the series. Over here on this side, you can see my early bee farms and also the multicolored sheep farm, although that ran out of shears a while ago, so all of the sheep are unsheared right now. This big building on the right-hand side here is my sugarcane farm, and behind that we have the storage building. This has been my storage building for a while, and I always come back here for bulk resources, although a lot of these are kind of depleted right now, especially the stone, because I've been building a mountain for a while. And as you come up the stairs, it turns into manual storage for a bunch of other stuff, including redstone components over here on the far side. So yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff stored away in this from all across the series. All 300 episodes have probably started with me grabbing some resources from this area, more or less, I guess, aside from the early episodes of the series. As we move out into the rest of the industrial district, we have cactus farms, pumpkin and melon farms, and a little area over here where you can compost all three of those automatically. This huge structure here is my current villager trading hall, but if you turn around, you'll also see the old villager trading hall, which was there for quite a while until I decided to move the villagers to somewhere a bit more permanent and a bit more enclosed to save them getting attacked by pillagers. So this Colosseum-like building here is actually my villager trading hall, and we can step inside that to see what we've got here. So this building is based on Leeds Corn Exchange, which is a building I got kind of familiar with when I used to live in Leeds, and I still haven't finished outfitting it with all of the possible villager professions, but I do come here regularly to trade with these librarians. Enchanted books and glass are the things I buy from these guys, and they have them by the bucket load. I also have a bunch of cartographers who I can trade the glass back to in form of glass panes to get myself a bunch of emeralds. And down on the lower levels, I also have some farmers, some butchers, and some armorers, which I found are really useful villager professions. You might be wondering what happened to all of the old villagers from my trading hall. Well, a lot of them live in a kind of retirement home over there in the forest. One of them is keeping bees down there on the banks of the river. He's a little bit enclosed in there. And all of the new villagers from the trading hall have come from a villager breeder on the top of the hill up there next to another automatic pumpkin and melon farm. There is a machine down here which zombifies the villagers, allowing me to cure them if I want to lower the prices of their trades. And around here we have some other really interesting farms, namely the simple record farm that I built nice and early. This is T-Bone Walker. He is the gold-plated skeleton who runs the place. And also I have a Vindicator-powered mob farm. That is to say, we have a bunch of little farms in here where we can breed a couple of mobs together. They end up in the system with the Vindicator once they have grown up. The Vindicator gets to kill them, and then all of the meat ends up in this chest down here by his feet. I also have a little rabbit farm over here because rabbits are kind of difficult to contain, but this giant hutch seems to be doing a good job of it. Moving over here, we have a couple more automated farms in this area, including, of course, my iron farm, the Iron Tower. Although that has been out of commission for a while, not out of any problems with it working, just because I was getting more iron than I really knew what to do with. So I still have tons of iron in my storage system. We'll probably never need more iron as long as I live, but we might do some other iron farm designs just for fun in other areas of the world. So that's about it for a tour of my industrial district, and while I might be going through each of these landmarks pretty fast, you can pause the video anytime you like in order to look around a little bit more. Like, you can still look around using the 360-degree video controls while the video is paused, so if you want to go back through any of that and take a closer look at it, you can do that if you want to. Let's move on, though, to the main town area of Founder's Forge, because I am really happy with how a lot of these builds have come together. I think standing up here on the roof of the Blacksmith's Guild is probably a great place to start. You can kind of take in the entire town from up here, and it means we don't have to do too much flying around. So there are a bunch of different things here. Some of them are functional and some of them are not. The purple building over there is a concrete converter, which is kind of an old design, doesn't have zero ticking involved. I could probably upgrade that at some point if I needed to, but I have another one of those over by the industrial area. There's a residential area over here with a bunch of just aesthetic houses, and each of those has a single pillager as an occupant. I got to the point where I was pacifying these pillagers, getting them to wear out and break their crossbows, and I brought them all back over here so I could populate my town with them, and I think they actually fit in here really well given the scheme of the whole area. There is a ravine running down the center of the town that is covered in layers of glass and is meant to look like the town is powered by these kind of geothermal energy grabbers, and there's some machinery working on that there in the center of the ravine. The town has a lively shopping area with a marketplace and a couple of more established shops. There are butchers and bakers and that kind of thing. There are also some tailors' shops and a pet shop and a library up there on the top part of the little plateau there. A few vegetable stalls and market places a little bit further around here. There are also some concealed areas of this place, including a netherwort farm underneath the shopping area, and there is even a potion brewer set up down there as well. And the Fox's Head Tavern is one of my favorite builds throughout this entire area. It's got a giant fox head on the front, so you know it from a mile away, and it is currently staffed by a bunch of foxes that keep the area kind of shipshape and end up making weird noises at night. Up on the hill behind the Cat Cafe, we have one of the many blacksmith's house in the area. This one contains an auto smelter that has a bunch of blast furnaces in, but I rarely use it, and I haven't actually finished the build in its entirety. I just like the facade of it sticking out from the hill there, and I did a bunch of terraforming on that hill to make it look pretty. Swinging around to the swampier side of town, we have Old Town, which is an area I haven't really done a huge amount with, but I wanted to experiment with adding a few more Chinese and Japanese building styles into the series. Hence all of the bamboo everywhere, but also the dark prismarine and acacia are some aspects of this I really like, along with a huge junk boat, which actually conceals a kelp farm and a kelp auto smelter, which I haven't used for a while. Once again, this is something that's probably been producing kelp for a while, but just hasn't been smelting any of it. And above that in the sky is the hot air balloon that conceals one of my first general mob farms, where we built a dark room spawner up there in the sky, and that provided me with all of the mob drops I needed for the first part of the series, but I still wish I had more bones. Of course, in the far distance, we have this giant beehive which houses my massive honey farm. I'm pretty sure all of the honey has been farmed out of it at this point. I think it has stopped outputting that because it's run out of glass bottles. The sheer amount of glass bottles required to fit that size of farm is kind of phenomenal, and I kind of got bored of trading glass from my villagers to keep it restocked. But for now, I have all of the honey blocks I need thanks to that farm over there. And we also have a few more experiments with note blocks sticking around here. I think this was the Super Mario theme for a while. But on the opposite side of town is one of my absolute favorite builds of the series. We spent 2 weeks working on this castle, and bits of it are still largely empty, but this is Castle Brimstone, the seat of power here in Founder's Forge, and one of my favorite builds that we've ever done. I learned a lot about castle building from this. This was the first time really trying to build a realistic castle for me, and while I think it turned out pretty well, I would love to do another castle build at some point in future and do it even bigger and even better. We've got so many little details in this, I can't possibly show you everything on the tour, but here are some of the highlights for me. We have a really awesome library room in here, which goes through this room here and into the next room as well, where there are paintings and lecterns and all kinds of stuff, including a couple of secret entrances that lead elsewhere in the castle. There is a brewery room in here with a massive bubbling vat on one side of the room, which is still something I am super happy with, and lots of barrels here waiting to be shipped out to the pubs. While it's not super well decorated, this map room was a recent project in which we got to map the entire Minecraft Survival Guide world, looking around at all of the different stuff that I have built over the course of this series, which is a real eye-opener, and of course, only about 8,000 blocks in every direction. There is still so much Minecraft world out there to be had. And here we have the Great Hall, or the Inspection Hall, which is where a lot of goods from the town might be brought before they are shipped off to other parts of the world. Down here below the Inspection Hall is actually the main nether portal for this area, and I think we'll take a quick trip through the Nether Hub to another location. And while we're here in the Nether, we might as well check out the Nether Hub and some of the other stuff that I've got around here. The Nether Hub itself has never quite been finished because I heard there were new Nether biomes on the way, and I decided they probably deserved a place in the biome dioramas that are all around this giant compass here in the center. So I've put the project on hold, and we will probably return to it when we plan to spend a lot more time in the Nether after the 1.16 update arrives. Let's take a quick look on top of the Nether though, because if I take the minecart elevator up, I can show you my gold farm. This right here is my Zombie Pigman gold farm, which was actually a Snow Crash design originally and then modified by Ilmango and of course imitated pretty much everywhere. But this is a really useful XP farm. I come here to mend my tools all the time, and thankfully it looks like we will only need to make minor modifications for this to continue working in the Nether update, so hopefully we won't have to do too much to that, although it might be kind of fun to rebuild a gold farm entirely from scratch when the Nether update rolls around. Either way, this has been an invaluable farm throughout this series and is definitely a landmark on our tour today. And of course, while we're here in the Nether, we have to stop by this Blaze Farm, which is a double Blaze spawner, has taken on many different incarnations throughout the series. Luckily, I'm in creative mode right now, so the blazes in the fortress elsewhere aren't paying me any mind. But yes, this is all based on Nembon's trickery when it comes to tricking Blaze pathfinding, and is a very good farm. I'm really enjoying using it more recently as I need blaze rods for fuel and that kind of stuff. There are a bunch of other farms out here in the Nether, specifically this with a skeleton farm. It's an old school design by Tango Tech, but it does the job. It's pretty light on resources, and I think it's been probably the source of all of my wither skulls throughout the course of this adventure, when I haven't been just farming them naturally from fortresses elsewhere in the world. And speaking of wither skeleton farms, we have this one here, which never really worked as intended because I haven't finished clearing out all of the terrain from around it. There are even some wither skeletons spawning out there on the netherrack before they spawn in this box here, but that is mainly just a matter of time, and all of my time has recently been more diverted to stuff like the mountain project, so I will probably get back to this another time, potentially when the Nether update comes around and we are spending more time in this dimension in general. And speaking of the Nether update, when the Nether update was originally announced, I had a go at modeling a couple of the Nether update biomes with some of the materials that we already had in the game, but I am still very excited to see what the biomes look like when they are transferred into the Nether, and I'll probably keep these just for the sake of posterity, but I'm really happy with the way the Nether update looks so far, and I cannot wait for it to arrive. While we're here though, there is a very handy Nether portal here that's going to take us to the next landmark on our tour, the Guardian Farm. Although I have not used it for a while, this is the Guardian Farm. This is based on a Cubfan135 design from the Hermitcraft server a few seasons ago now, and I still really love this thing, despite the fact that I don't use it all that much anymore. It was an experience farm, and it was a farm for sea lanterns and prismarine for a long time, and I'm still working through the backlog of prismarine blocks I was able to generate with this thing. So much as it deserves praise, I have not really been using it for a while, and there are still a couple of modifications I would like to make to it, but once again, I'm kind of tempted to just find another ocean monument and have some fun with it in the near future. So stick around for this series and we might end up seeing a little bit more ocean monument action at some point. Just off the coast of our Guardian Farm is this wonderful little turtle island that we built just to try out the hatching mechanics of turtles and get ourselves our first turtle helmet of the series, and there are still some eggs around here which haven't hatched because I haven't had the chunks loaded for a while, but it is nice to come here and relax every so often. It feels like a beach vacation every time we are here, and somehow the turtles always seem to find a way of getting up on the fence posts. Those two landmarks also share an ocean with this, the first ever mushroom island I found, the source of all of my suspicious stew, and a factory build which I still have never come back to finish the back wall of. But this right here is a factory build where we got a bunch of brown mushrooms and made ourselves a ton of suspicious stew of each of the different varieties. And I still really like that as a concept, even if we don't tend to eat the stuff all that much. Just outside of the factory, of course, we have this creeper farm out here in the bay, which still I visit occasionally to provide myself with a little bit of gunpowder, but since it is Wither Rose powered, unfortunately that design will not last for much longer. The Wither Roses are going to prevent spawning of regular mobs in the next update, but hopefully we should be able to modify this farm a little bit and it won't be as bad as all that. And in the meantime, I'm going to spend some time AFKing over here, stockpiling the gunpowder when I have the chance. Another quick trip through the Nether takes us out to this desert village, which was the site of my first raid, and subsequently I ended up rebuilding the village's population after the raid didn't go super well. Since then, the community has thrived, and I've even built them a few extra houses. On the horizon in the distance, you can see the Pillager Watchtower from which the patrols originated that I got the bad omen effect from, and I've been using that as a site to pacify pillagers and even capture a couple of Ravagers for my own ends. Down here, there is a Ravager-powered crop farm, which I don't really feel like moving anywhere because Ravagers are a bit of a pain to move in the first place, but that produces fantastic results if I ever need a bunch of crops in a hurry. Elsewhere in the same desert, although actually a couple of thousand blocks away really, we found a fossil in a ravine over here. Actually went out and found a fossil intentionally instead of stumbling across them like you normally do, and this was a fantastic discovery, so fantastic in fact that I decided I wanted to turn the whole area into a paleontological dig site. So we have some cranes and stuff hauling up bits of the fossil from below so that they can be looked at in a little camp over here, and I really like this as a build. I feel like it could use a little bit more development, but it's a super fun thing to do if you find something like the fossil that we found here, and I think it became one of the landmarks of the series just because of how rare it is to find one of these things. Heading out to the northeast in the world, we have the first village I ever found in this world, complete with a protective fence all the way around it, and some of the old school villagers just kind of milling around a little bit. We also have a couple of the micro builds that I was building back when I was still messing around with the early days of Minecraft Earth, and in the distance there is even the Squid Farm out there with a dry riverbed in 128 block radius so that we can get the optimal rates out of that squid farm. It has provided me with ink and black dye for the majority of this series, and it continues to do so. This area kind of brings back a lot of good memories for me because this was our first real exploration into villages and villager breeding. Good times. And if we venture even further into the northeastern corner of the world, we find this ominous patch of darkness, which if you look up right now, yep, you'll see it, it's the Drowned Farm. And what a mess this Drowned Farm is. But it is, I have to say, an incredibly productive mess. I have gotten more tridents out of this Drowned Farm than I honestly know what to do with, and I'm still really happy that I built it as big as I did. We've refined the formula a little bit in the Skyblock series recently, but this thing is still one of my favorite farms that we built in the Minecraft Survival Guide. But before we go to my favorite part of the world, the new projects that I've been working on, we are going to take a quick trip to the end. And don't be fooled, we're not there already. This is a portal room that I built a good while ago, and I really like the way this turned out. A few floating islands representing the end, with the central end portal surrounded by miniature obsidian pillars. It is a really fun thing to build one of these things, and the walls and ceiling of this room and the floor are entirely black concrete, making it look almost invisible the rest of the time. Alright, let's head on through to the end. And as we step on through to the end, you'll see another project that I would love to return to at some point in future. This is the End Hub, where I've linked together all of the gateways that generate when you defeat the Ender Dragon, all 20 of them, and removed bedrock from the top of them. The idea with this project was that we were going to convert the End Island into a spaceport, complete with a bunch of teleporters that would take you up to ships that would take you out to the outer End Islands. And once again, I would still love to return to this kind of project in future. I just haven't really been able to think of ways we can turn that into a tutorial that isn't just about building spaceships. and I would love to return to taking down the obsidian pillars here at some point as well, but I honestly don't know if I have the time, because gosh, that did take a while. We got half of them done though, which is why you find these obsidian pillar shaped craters in the ground, and about 7 double chests of obsidian back at my base. And if you've ever seen this end portal covered in redstone dust and wanted to know why, that is because I used it to take shulkers back to the overworld, and I had to spawn-proof an area around there to make sure the shulkers would teleport into the area I wanted them to. There are a couple of other stops we need to make here in the end while we're here, so let's hop up onto the end gateway platform and head out to the first one. And speaking of messy farms, this right here is Nembon's Ender Mini, which is an absolutely phenomenal Enderman Farm, and oh gosh, I've not really used it for a while because of the sheer amount of ender pearls this thing generates. I just don't have a use for them anymore, and they're all just getting destroyed by the cactus up there as quickly as I possibly can. But this was a phenomenal XP farm, and I would probably return and use it more frequently if it wasn't for the fact that the Endermen themselves are kind of annoying. In the distance, though, we have another one of my favorite places on this entire world, which is the Endor Park, or the End Village, that I created by bringing villagers out here while I was still experimenting with what villagers did in the 1.14 update. And this place is, quite frankly, the sole reason I have disabled Enderman griefing for this world using a data pack, because the grass, ladies and gentlemen, so much grass that I had to place out here, and a bunch of trees and stuff as well, so that the villagers would feel a little bit more at home. I even built a few of them houses, although they seem to prefer sleeping outdoors under the stars, I guess, and it's nice to see them working away. We have a bunch of librarians out here. If I right-clicked on any of those beds, then explosions would happen, but the librarians seem to be able to use them just fine, and I love the fact that we were able to build this little park here with the spiraling cliffs and then that magnificent view of the end city up there in the distance. And this has been the site of a couple of other projects. We've tried doing raids here and stuff as well, which did work when we tried it out. Unfortunately, raids never worked in the Nether, which was another concept I had for a video, but I loved spending time here. It was a really fun project, and hopefully, if the end ever got an overhaul in future, we would come back and we would do wonderful things here. Here we are at the Wither Rose Farm, which I made a good while ago and is probably in various states of disarray, but this is the place I come whenever I want to get myself some Wither Roses. There's an Enderman Farm up here, which should generate a fair amount of Enderman once I am far enough off the ground, which is why the entire platform down there is completely covered over with water. And as I stand at the top of this platform, Endermen should be prevented from spawning anywhere except the top of the farm, and they should fall down into that chamber where they are then blasted by the Wither, which will turn them into some Wither Roses. And since Wither Roses are going to get nerfed in the next Minecraft update, I'm not certain how much more frequently I will be using this farm, but I still think it's quite good to have a stockpile of them, and this seems to be a pretty effective way to do it. Now that brings us to the last stop on our tour, and the one that I think is the most important to me over the last little while. This is the Snag Ski Resort, named after, of course, one of my patrons who has supported me for a very long time. This right here is my latest project area, and is one we are probably going to be leaving behind after this episode. Much as there is still work to do here, there is work to do all over the world, and I have some other projects in mind that are going to lead us into the Nether update when that eventually releases. So hopefully we'll be seeing a bit more of this area in future, but I think this episode is probably the last we'll see of it on these videos, at least for a little while. This is the main entrance here. I love the fact that we were able to make a little road leading into the area, and I'll give you a quick snapshot of a couple of the places in this area that I am the most proud of. First of all, I think one of my favorite houses I've ever built is this split A-frame modern house, this kind of contemporary Arctic Lodge style thing that I've decided to put together so we could use it as a base to work on this area. I still love the interior. I think it's nice and cozy, and it's been really nice to come back in here and get some sleep every so often while I've been working on the mountains themselves. And while the rest of the ski village is still not entirely complete, I love these latest builds we are working on in the last episode, transforming some of the Arctic village that we have here, the Snow Plains village, into something more resembling a contemporary ski resort town. And I think some of these houses, especially once they have interiors, could be really, really cozy indeed. But of course, this would not be a tour of the Minecraft Survival Guide world without giving you guys a tour of the mountain, the as yet unnamed mountain, and I probably will end up naming it at some point, but for now, I think it just stands alone as a pretty remarkable achievement for this series, and I'm really happy that I brought you guys along for the ride, and we persevered through live streams and through videos. We got the mountain range built, and it is a mountain range. There are several peaks here, and some of them even have something resembling a ski slope running down from them now. I think it's been a really, really fun project, and one of our first custom biome builds in this world, and hopefully not the last. Hopefully we'll get to do more epic projects like this in the future of the series, but I really think this is one of my favorite locations in the world now. It's going to be a little sad to leave it behind, admittedly, but we do have to go somewhere else and do some other stuff every once in a while. Hopefully we will return to the mountain in future, but for now I think I'm happy leaving it as it is. I think it looks glorious from ground level, and that's really what I wanted, was something that was going to make the ski resort feel all the more impressive. So let's stand down here and take it in one last time, but that is probably going to be where we wrap up this tour of the Minecraft Survival Guide world. And I know I have left out a bunch of stuff, not to mention things like the witch farm, some of the stuff that we've got built in here in the mountain, and various other things besides. The jungle village to the south as well. There are a bunch of things that we could have fit into the tour, but I think this is the stuff that has meant the most to me over the last 300 episodes. And the other thing that has meant the most to me is your support on this series. I could not do it without you. The series has changed my life and has made YouTube something that I can do as a career. I'm indebted to you as my audience, and I'm so, so grateful that you came along with me for this tour for the 300th episode. I really hope you enjoyed the format of this. This is something that I would love to do a little bit more experimentation with in future, but for now, that's going to be it for the 300th episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. So I'll say what I always say, folks. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.